What if our most celebrated leadership models are actually undermining God's mission? Hello, my name is Dr. Eun Ah Cho. I teach intercultural studies at Gordon-Conwell Theological Seminary and serve as Dean of the Gordon-Conwell Institute. In my years of teaching and leading, I've observed how traditional leadership approaches, even those wrapped in Christian language, work against God's kingdom purposes. Today, with this in mind, I want to explore what it truly means to lead for God's mission. And to answer this question effectively, we need to understand three interconnected elements: leadership itself, God's mission, and cultural intelligence. Let me start with cultural intelligence. Culture is not common sense. Cultural intelligence requires intentional development. Despite our international exposure through media and travel, we often remain blind to our own cultural biases and assumptions. For example, in team settings, one person might value direct communication and efficiency, while another person prioritizes relational harmony and consensus building, each approaching the same conversation with fundamentally different frameworks about what team ministry means. These differences aren't simply preferences. They reflect deeply held cultural values that shape how we interpret every interaction. And here is one more important point that I want to highlight. The true cultural intelligence requires participation in proximity, not just distant analysis. Reading books about culture or attending seminars isn't enough. We must engage with people different from ourselves, ask questions, make mistakes, and learn through relationship. Not everyone who speaks eloquently about culture is in fact culturally intelligent. Similarly, leadership isn't intuitive. Without deliberate study and self-reflection, we unconsciously replicate leadership styles and habits we've experienced, sometimes even the very approaches we once criticized. For instance, I've mentored pastors who rejected authoritarian leadership models in theory, only to adopt them under pressure when facing ministry challenges. Why? Because our default leadership behaviors emerge from our formation, not our intentions. So leadership flows from who we are, not only what we do. As Christians, we lead from our being, shaped both through the experiences God brings into our lives and by our convictions and values embedded in our cultural background. When we lead without self-awareness, we often miscommunicate and misinterpret, defending ourselves based on our intentions, while judging others based on the consequences of their actions. Another prevalent distinction you've likely heard is the one between doing things right and doing the right thing. But I would argue that we must aspire to something beyond doing the right thing right. For Christian leaders, what is the right thing to do and what is the right way of doing it? This brings me to my core conviction. The primary task of Christian leaders is to help each member of Christ's body to fulfill their unique calling in God's mission. What then is God's mission? Simply put, it is God's ongoing work that spans from creation to recreation. And it is by God's grace that we are invited to participate in this mission, not as independent operators, but as members of Christ's body working together. Now, how can we do this right? Here is where I propose a new model that aligns with both God's mission and cultural intelligence, leading as ligaments. Like ligaments in the human body, numerous and diverse in shape, size, and location, we who lead are varied and many. Though ligaments are essential for proper bodily function, they remain largely invisible, working beneath the surface. Similarly, for different members of the body of Christ to function at their full potential, leaders often work behind the scenes, creating connection, support, and protection that enable others to thrive. In practical terms, it means recognizing our success as leaders isn't measured by personal achievement, but by the collective flourishing of those we serve. After all, leadership is not about leaders, but about people. Circling back to my opening question, what does it truly mean to lead for God's mission? My answer is this. True leadership for God's mission requires us to develop genuine cultural intelligence, to lead from a place of deep self-awareness, and to function as ligaments, connecting, supporting, and strengthening others so the whole body might fulfill its divine calling.